Hello, namaskaram, namaskar. My name is Pooja Dwivedi. Welcome to my class. This is a special class that shall focus upon all the important outcomes during the presidency of India at the G20. The G20 Summit 2023 is being touted as historic by not only India but other different countries. So, we are going to focus upon the joint declaration on which 100% consensus has been built, which was not expected by any country. We are going to discuss why. We will also talk about the India, Middle East, Europe corridor, which is being touted as a modern spice route. We are also going to talk about the Global Biofuel Alliance, and we are going to compare India's position on different parameters vis-a-vis different other countries of the G20. From the perspective of your GS Mains Paper 2, it is important that you watch this entire class till the very end and do not worry about note making because I provide the notes through my Telegram channel that is by the name of Pooja Dwivedi UPSC. If you have any queries regarding this examination, you can also talk to me on my Instagram and follow me on Threads. Now, the P2I batches have been a success when it comes to enrollment. So, StudyIQ IAS has brought out other batches from 11th of September. These are morning batches. Live classes will start from 8 a.m. onwards. You will get study material, mains test series, prelims test series, daily answer writing practice, CSAT, essay, ethics, even language papers will be covered over here. And a Study IQ campus program is also there. You will be called to the Study IQ campus. If you are a student of any P2I batch and you have enrolled in them, if you have qualified UPSC Prelims 2024, you will be called to the campus to prepare for the mains examination. Just make sure that whenever you are going to take admission, you must use the code PDLive to get this at a price of 29,999 only. PDLive is also applicable to other batches. Now, if I talk about the G20, what is it? It is a forum which deals with economic scenarios. It all started with the Asian financial crisis. This was a product of globalization. Since globalization started to occur, it was noted that an economic crisis in one country could spill over to other countries as well. In order to make sure that the policies of the economic front are coordinated enough, in 1999, it was decided that the financial perspective of all the countries should be coordinated, and in 1999, this was institutionalized. How? It all started with the meeting of the finance ministers and the governors of the central bank of different countries. These were the 19 economies plus the European Union. So that policy coordination could take place. So the origin was 1999. But during a later phase, it was also suggested that it's not only the economic front, but other perspectives also which need our attention, such as agriculture, climate, technology, security, all these are interconnected with the economic prosperity. So in 2008, it was decided to elevate it to the head of states level. So since 2008, it is a head of states meeting. Right now, if we exclude the African Union, we have 20 members. Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Canada, China, France, Germany, India, Indonesia, Italy, Japan, Mexico, Russia, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, South Korea, Turkey, UK, US, and EU. And recently, as India emerged as the voice of the global South, the African Union has also become a permanent member of the G20. So now it is G21, although we are not very sure about the nomenclature. It will be soon notified if the nomenclature has to change from the G20 to the G21. So now, if we talk about the population, just these many would represent 2/3 of the planet's population. With the inclusion of the African Union, the population will be 80% of the Earth. And 85% of the global GDP is represented by this much. If we include African Union, it will be much more. Other than this, if we talk about the trade, it is 75% as of yet. The impact will be known after the African Union becomes an active member. Alright, so during the presidency of India, we could see that African Union could become a part of the G20. And if we compare the G20 India with the other countries of G20, let's look at them one by one. If we talk about population, you can see how we are matching up with China. We have, of course, trust of China. These are other countries, the population will be as such. European Union, United States, and countries such as Brazil are very far behind our population. If India can use it in the form of demographic dividend. That means India can invest in its population so that it can develop human resources, and then capitalize on that. Then we have life expectancy at birth. That means what is the life expectancy? How many years a person is expected to live when they are at the time when they are born. And this is as of 2021. India is pretty low here. It is 67 for India. For United States, it is 76. For Germany, it is 81. If we compare it to China, China's is still greater than us, but we are at the lowest with 67. Life expectancy is very less. Other than this, education expenditure, let us see what is our expenditure of the GDP as of 2020. India spends just 4.5% of its GDP on education as of 2020. Saudi Arabia has the highest, 7.8. Still, we are better than China. China is 3.6. Other important parameter is the share of population with internet access as of 2021. India stands here after Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Canada, China, France, Germany. We have India. We are at 46.3%. Then let's talk about military expenditure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. India stands at 5th. It is of 2021, as of 2021. And Saudi Arabia is first, then Russia, United States, South Korea, India. Where is China? China is over here with just 1.7%. India is high, 2.7% because of our neighbor Pakistan and China. Total greenhouse gas emission as of 2020, India stands at 3rd after China and United States. This is as of 2020, remember that. Then, India recently handed over the presidency of the G20 to Brazil. Although till November 2023, we will remain to be the president of the G20. But now, in 2024, it will be Brazil. After that, we have South Africa. So right now, I must tell you about the concept of G20 Troika. What is Troika? Troika is a card of 3 countries that have been the past, the present, and the future president of the G20. Right now, the Troika consists of Indonesia, India, and Brazil. Because Indonesia was the president for 2022, India for 2023, and Brazil for 2024. The 2024 Troika will comprise of India, Brazil, and South Africa, because South Africa will be the president in the year 2025. So Troika is a concept that is very prominent in G20. Why is it so? Because in order to ensure that there is policy continuity in the G20, the previous, present, and the future presidents, they are in one single card so that the declaration can move forward. Alright, now the key highlights, let's go through them one by one. African Union, which is an organization of 55 countries of Africa, it has become a permanent member. Russia has not at all been condemned in the joint declaration, which was not at all expected. Then, India Middle East Europe Transport Corridor has been launched in order to provide an alternative to China's Belt and Road Initiative. Global Biofuel Alliance. India has tasted success when it comes to blending of ethanol in petrol, and India is going to do that on a pan-country basis. So, how will India prove to be a good leader here? We are going to see that as well. These are the important things that we have to cover. The African Union, which was established formally in the year 2002. It is a successor of the Organization of African Unity, which was established in 1963. This is a group of countries which were just decolonized. And in order to ensure that prosperity comes for all as a union, the Organization of African Unity was given birth to. But in 2002, it was changed, or it was succeeded by the African Union. African Union has a combined GDP of $3 trillion. It is also representative of a huge population. When India called for the admission of the African Union, there were certain naysayers as well. They were not sure if the African Union would be a worthy partner for the G20, if it would open doors for other organizations as well to be a representation in the G20, such as the ASEAN, the Gulf Cooperation Council. It was found by India and many other countries that South Africa alone would not be able to represent the entire weightage of the African Union. So it was called by India that we need to be inclusive, we need to be morally correct, and we need to represent the all of the population of Africa, because Africa is a huge continent, second largest continent. Why shouldn't it be included in the G20? Some said that the G20, the effectiveness of the G20 will be reduced if we also include the African Union. What if someday ASEAN or other organizations also demand positions? Will it be a worthy partner or not? India remained firm, and India voiced its concerns over the global south being left out. So India emerged as the voice of the global south by including the African Union. During its presidency, numerous calls were made, numerous high-level phone calls were made in order to ensure that African Union, which is under the presidency of Comoros right now, is included. So now India has emerged as the voice of the global south. Not only that, countries such as Japan, such as the USA are also backing India as a representation of the global south. The global south is not now willing to be lectured about things. It wants to be the decision maker. And this has been proven by India. Let's talk about the joint declaration. It's very interesting. I read the joint declaration. There were certain things that opened my eyes too wide. For the first time when it came out, I was so surprised. Why? Because right now the world is polarized on the Russian-Ukraine war, as we all know it. The West always wants strong condemnation against Russia, but India has always remained neutral. India has addressed and acknowledged the humanitarian, economic, climate crisis of Ukraine. India has also acknowledged that Ukraine should be aided properly, but the wrong choice of words could make India seem as a part of the West Bloc. So India did not condemn it. India said all states must act in a manner consistent with purposes and principles of the UN Charter in entirety. That means all states. It was also talking about China. That means there will not be any sort of usage of force in order to alter unilaterally the sovereignty and integrity of any country. So this is what we call as Chanakya Niti. Then, peaceful resolution of conflicts. We must ensure that diplomacy exists and not one-sided issues. There were different views on assessments of the situation. India did agree that the world was not looking in the same direction, yet 100% consensus was reached. And today's era must not be of war. This is what the Prime Minister has reiterated in front of Vladimir Putin, the President of Russia. So how did the Russians react? The Russians said that they were not expecting a declaration, joint declaration at all, because the world is so divided. The world was very divided on the kind of language that should be used in the joint consensus, the New Delhi Declaration. In Bali Declaration, Russia was strongly abhorred and deplored, calling out Russia many times. But this time, Russia was not called out. Is the support of the West waning for Ukraine? Or is India standing on the correct pedestal as the voice of the global South, as the Vishwaguru, as turning the tides of the tide? India has shown yet again that it will not be bogged down by any pressure. More than 200 hours of negotiations took place. Nobody was expecting a joint declaration to come because of the diversion of interest and divergent outlooks on this entire matter. On the first day of the summit, we were able to have a joint declaration. It is just marvelous, miraculous, I must say. Also, on grain and food energy security, do you know Why did Russia pull out of the Black Sea grain deal? Because Russian food products were not being managed properly, were not being promoted properly for consumption, and it was causing loss to Russia. So Russia, it withdrew out of the Black Sea grain initiative. But there have been calls on Russia and Ukraine to ensure immediate and impeded deliveries of grain, foodstuff, fertilizer inputs from both Russia and Ukraine. We know that as and much as we corner Russia, it will not, go back from the current situation that it has put us into. So that is why not only Ukraine's but Russia's food grains are also included here. Then, emphasizing the importance of sustaining food and energy security, it called for cessation of military destruction or other attacks on relevant infrastructure. Here we are talking about ports, Odessa, Chornomorsk, Yuzhny. Then, potential for high levels of volatility in food and energy market remains. That means we need to come back in the same language on the Black Sea Grain Initiative. Then economies and financial market will protect the vulnerable through equitable growth. Reaffirm April 2021 exchange rate commitment which was made by the G20 finance ministers and the central bank governors. Endorsing Financial Stability Board's high-level recommendation on regulation, supervision and oversight of cryptocurrencies, crypto assets or activities. Finance ministers and CBGs will discuss taking cryptocurrency concept forward. Review our commitment to ensure a level playing field and fair competition by discouraging protectionism. That means my commodities should be just produced by me, and my border should be close to other countries' produce. This should not be. Market distorting practices as well. Then, on climate crises, we need to accelerate efforts to phase down unabated coal power. See, there were a lot of issues with respect to usage of the words fossil fuel. The Middle East was not happy with it. So that is why we changed the word over there as well. We'll work towards facilitating low-cost financing for developing countries to support their transition to low carbon. We'll pursue and encourage efforts to triple renewable energy. Remember, because UPSC can ask us triple renewable energy capacity globally through the existing targets, and that too by the year 2030. Reiterate our commitment to take action to scale up sustainable finance. Finance should be sustainable. We should give loans at such rates that they could be repaid. Also, recognize the need for increased global investment to meet our climate goals of the Paris Agreement of 2015, which says that the temperatures of the world must be kept well below 1.5 degree to 2 degrees Celsius if we compare the temperature by the pre-industrial level. And there is a need of $5.8 to $5.9 trillion in pre-2030 period. Remember the data. For developing countries in particularly, the need to implement emissions target. There were calls on parties to set ambitious, transparent and trackable new collective quantified goal of climate finance in 2024. For it's just talks if we just promise money and never give it. From a floor of $100 billion. Also, on global debt vulnerabilities, there is a commitment to promote resilient growth by urgently and effectively addressing the debt vulnerabilities in developing countries. Of course, here we are mentioning countries such as Sri Lanka. There is call for swift conclusion of the debt treatment for Ethiopia. So, the inclusion of African Union will be a very important boost. Also, on health, there is a need to remain committed to strengthening the global health architecture specifically after the pandemic and enhancing the resilience of health system and support development of climate resilient and low carbon health system in collaboration with multilateral banks. So the inclusion of the African Union, the reiteration of commitment to the developing countries and the importance of the developing countries, it will open doors for India's reformation in the other multilateral institutes as well. Now, just read it. Very few had expected a joint declaration at this year's G20. Nobody expected that people will see eye to eye on this, on the issue of the Russia-Ukraine war. Specifically, India's G20 presidency? No, not at all. Not the least on the first day of the summit. The group is deeply divided over the last year's invasion of Ukraine by Russia. Neither Russia's Vladimir Putin nor China's Xi Jinping turned up in Delhi, sending lower-level delegations instead, undermining the importance of India Of course, Dr. S. Jaishankar did say that Russia and China did not come because of their own issues. Russia's, we know that Russia may not want to face the ire of the entire, situation or the entire group of leaders at the G20, but China could have come. So there was surprise when just hours after the summit started, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced consensus had been reached, and even Russians did not, were very surprised. Ukraine said that there is nothing historic about it. Why did you not condemn Russia? So that is their point of view. Now, next thing, India, Middle East, Europe transport corridor. This corridor is going to connect India with West Asia and the rest of the Europe with the help of different ports, and the West Asia region will be connected by railway links. There are also going to be many other important, connectivity projects here. Then we will go to the European region with the help of other ports as well. So this is how it is going to look. The India Middle East Europe transport corridor is providing an alternative to China's Belt and Road Initiative. This is a part of another initiative, the India Middle East Europe corridor. We'll get into that. How many countries are involved? India, UAE, Saudi Arabia, the European Union, France, Italy, Germany, and the US. Italy has already sent its signals to the BRI, sent its signals to China that it doesn't want to be a part of the Belt and Road Initiative. This is just days ahead of the Belt and Road Initiative conference that is going to take place, and Italy recently became a part of the G20, as in the summit. It came into the summit, and you see that days are over for BRI when it comes to its tryst with the West. So this is the spice route, the old spice route. These are the many ports that were used to connect India to the rest of the world, specifically the West Asia and the European regions. So we are going to reinvigorate. After the advent of the British, and later on when the British left India and India became independent, we thought that we were more connected to the West. And this needs to be done again now. Why? Because India needs to reiterate its position as it was in the historic times. India has been a very well endowed country. That is why. Now, the rail and shipping corridor, it is a part of the India Middle East Europe corridor, is a part of the Partnership for Global Infrastructure Investment. This was launched at the 48th G7 Summit, and this is the version of Build Back Better World, which was launched in 2021 by the G7 in order to counter China's increasing presence. Okay, there is funding, there will be funding for it. Also, it will enable greater trade among the involved countries. It will make these countries prosperous with the help of, so many rail links and so many links. Now, as I already told you, there is a gap of $40 trillion in infrastructure around the world, specifically in developing and less developed countries. So we need to fill that gap with sustainable loan. A value-driven, high-impact and transparent infrastructure partnership is what? The Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment. And the India Middle East Europe corridor is a part of this only. And it says that G7 under it will mobilize $600 billion by 2027. The European Union will mobilize 300 billion euros for the partnership over the same period. There will be rail link, an electricity cable, a hydrogen pipeline, a high-speed data cable, and it will increase the prosperity of whatever countries are involved in this particular project. The project would help deal with the lack of infrastructure that is needed in economic growth in low-income and middle-income country, and it could also help turn down the political temperature. We'll get into these one by one. See, we know that India and USA always talk about the Indo-Pacific. So many people say, many experts believe that India and the USA may not have other points of convergence. So the India, Middle East, Europe corridor will be a common point of convergence. That means we are not only worried about the Indo-Pacific, but also West Asia, specifically after the influence of China is increasing through countries such as Iran, Afghanistan, and many other countries. Pakistan's influence as a neighbor will be decreased because you see that Pakistan never gives us access to this region through its routes. Although Pakistan could be very prosperous by doing so, but it doesn't. So we need to bypass Pakistan. Although we have a Chabahar port in Iran, here But of course, because of the sanctions by the West, we could not make full use of it. But let's see what our relationship with Iran will be like in the near future. Although we have good interest, good kind of relation. There is also political issues in the Arabian Peninsula due to the lack of economic growth. So by mingling these countries together, it will be important that we check the political temperature that there as well. The Trans-African Corridor, which wants to ensure the connectivity in countries such as DRC, Angola, Zambia, this will also be a part, this will also get access or get a boost through this particular India, Middle East, Europe corridor. Okay, and India, by the admission of the African Union, can do a lot, can play a better role in the African region. All right, now let's talk about the Global Biofuel Alliance. This is spearheaded, this was in talks for a long period of time, and India, United States and Brazil spearheaded it. Other countries who have joined are Argentina, Bangladesh, Italy, Mauritius, South Africa and the UAE. Canada and Singapore are observer. 19 countries out of the 19 countries and 12 international organizations have already agreed to join the Global Biofuel Alliance. 7 of the 19 countries are from G20, 4 are among the G20 invitees, and 8 are neither G20 members not invited. That means G20 is not just G20. We just do not sit together and just talk about us, have our own projects. It's not like that. It's inclusive in nature. So the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, World Economic Forum, International Energy Agency, International Energy Forum, International Renewable Energy Agency and the International Civil Aviation Organization all are a part of it. The US and Brazil are seen as global leaders in biofuel. 52% is contributed by the USA, 30% is by Brazil, specifically about ethanol. We will build capacity. That means countries shall be able to develop their own ethanol, biofuel. Technical support will be given for national programs if they have any national program. Promoting policy lesson sharing. If any policy is working greatly in one country, it could be managed for other as well. Mobilizing a virtual marketplace. All the important industry, academics, everybody will come on a single platform so that marketplace can be created. All right. Development, adoption and implementation will be done through internationally recognized standards, code sustainability principles and regulations so that the products are marketable. Also, we will incentivize those who are going to produce biofuels. So this is green energy. India has tasted success in ethanol production. We achieved the target of 10% ethanol blending June 2022. That was ahead of our November 2022 deadline. Pan-India E20 petrol with 20% ethanol rollout will be done, and blending diesel with sustainable biofuels and natural gas with biogas is another very important achievement that India is looking at in the near future. So I hope you understood how the entire G20 worked greatly to benefit the G20 as a whole and even India. Under India's presidency, we saw how India is emerging or has emerged now as the voice of the global south. The time of India has arrived. Thank you so much for watching.